think it's a crisis, Ms. Roberts. I've been telling churches and I've been trying to advocate that what we're dealing with when we talk about lives impacted by crime and incarceration is a social crisis in America.
Anything that has a tendency to push our most vulnerable students into the criminal justice system rather than achieve their full potential is the school-to-prison pipeline system that we have in this country.
To me, the meaning means being where a child is targeted or they're not doing what they're supposed to do and they're just giving up on, and no one's there to support them or support their needs or concerns, and they have no help, no guidance. So when they don't have that guidance, they're just left to dry to figure life out, and therefore usually bad things start to happen once that happens, and there's just no turning back.
A lot of people don't have like an inside view to like imprisonment or incarceration. They know it's a bad place, but they give it a positive look.
Spin.
Yeah, they give it a positive
Absolutely.
spin. Yeah, they give it a positive spin.
Yeah.
And it's like more people are in and out,
right.
in and out constantly.
And the school-to-prison pipeline really is just a system in which policies are created for youth, specifically youth of color, those are the ones that are being affected the most, are being imprisoned, being disciplined in a way that does not equate for the task or the wrong that they did. The punishment just does not add up. When you think about, for me, I've been thinking about the 13th Amendment and how the 13th Amendment shows up. I believe the 13th Amendment is truly a loophole.
But what was happening in the Federal Bureau of Prisons and state prisons as well was overcrowding. Where in state prisons, the issue was overcrowding. In the Federal Bureau of Prisons, it was overcrowding. Now, why? Because of the laws of the late 70s and 80s, where you just was locking up so many people. And then 20 or 30 years later, you see the results of that mass incarceration from a prison perspective, which we call overcrowding. So what happened is started to move toward privatization of prisons, where the public sector was coming to offer what we call prison support by building private prisons.
Right.
And thus that's when it was introduced to me about the school to prison, because private prisons were for profit.
Yes.
And thus the whole concept was something I always struggled with as a chaplain, because I never thought we would have private prisons for profit. And thus, to make money, you got to have people in these prisons.
I remember as a teacher, just again, I felt the distinct impact that I was teaching in a prison when I was teaching in public schools in Manhattan, where again the metal detector, the pat down, the patrolling of the officers, the searching of the lockers, all of this really was kind of a very intentional theater to create a very carceral, criminal kind of environment. And you don't get that impression at all when you're teaching at the task school, you're teaching at these NIS, independent, public schools that are well-funded. You don't get that sense at all in the culture. So that's the first thing that kind of pops out, that we're priming our youth to basically assume a role of criminality before they actually are criminalized with a conviction. So by the time that it actually happens, this almost seems to be a complete inevitable outcome.
So my story was when I was like 19, on the verge of being 20, hanging around with a specific group of friends, being influenced by the wrong crowd. Hanging out with that group of friends led me to a decision to rob a store. So during that altercation, I didn't get away with anything. I tried to run away, but I ended up getting shot though. And I got in the car, the getaway car. He took me back to his house, dragged me out of the car, left me on the side of the road, called the ambulance and the police, and drove off.
Wow.
So I got locked up and went to jail in April 8th, 2018, and I came home February 23rd, last year. So roughly about 4 years and 10 months. So that's like right there. If I
Sorry.
You're good.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
If you look at the stats in terms of how minorities are impacted, and they represent the numbers that's represented that's incarcerated, which are very disproportionate to the population, statistics of the population of minority, you have to raise the question why. Historically, we know the history of America.
Absolutely.
And it has a racist kind of history through slavery. Here we are in the 21st century now, and we're still trying to right a lot of the wrongs that are part of our society when it comes to crime and incarceration. And one thing you got to keep in mind, because this nation has practiced mass incarceration, especially in the 70s and the 80s, with the 3 strikes and you're out,
Yes.
these laws that begin to just, the way to deal with crime is to just lock people up.
Right.
And my experience over the years is that there are some violent people who need to be incarcerated. But as a chaplain on the inside, working with people personally, working with their families, working with their situations from a pastoral care perspective, you learn that everybody is not a career criminal.
Absolutely.
And
not.
everybody doesn't need to be incarcerated
Absolutely.
to pay whatever price they need to pay for whatever law they broke.
You know that there are more police resource officers in schools than counselors.
Which is sad, because again, you're setting them up to say, hey, once you're in trouble, you're going here. And we all know, especially in high school, once you're a certain age, it's not just getting suspended. You're getting a record. You're going downtown. Your parents are coming to pick you up from the jail, not from school. So it's like you're setting them up for failure. Like, once it starts, it starts. It's really usually no going back from that. Unless you have a strong support system that's there to support you to say, hey, let's go down this direction. Let's do something different. So I just feel like they're there to set them up for failure.
They assume in many ways as impressionable children of tender years, the expectations of their educators and administrators and school resource officers around them. As in the same way that in more affluent schools, they assume the expectations that are high expectations of the teachers and school administrators and officers that are not really there. But they have a different message conveyed to them daily that they are the cream of the crop and the best of the best. Lessons and messages get conveyed day in, day out, and it seeps into the subconscious and it affects the life potential of the individual.
Can you share with me an experience that occurred in school that you think was really setting your brother up for failure?
So he was always the one that had to keep an eye on, but he's always the one that wanted to fight as well. So they just knew that from year to year to year. I felt like they put that target on his back from day one, from coming from middle school to high school, which we thought would be maybe a start over for him, but it really wasn't. He still had that target on his back. They knew, hey, this is the guy we're going to have to look out for. If he does anything wrong, hey, he needs to be sent to the office. He needs to do this, this, and this. So it's like any little thing that he did, it was a major issue, which I don't feel was ever fair.
In many ways, it feels like his learning experience and his childhood was taken away from him. And the option to become better, the option to become a leader, the option to become whatever he wanted to be in life was taken from him.
Yeah, it was taken from him because, again, we can support as a family, but if you don't have that support out in the world, then you're still left because you don't have any guidance. So we tried to lead him to the right way and down the right path, but eventually it led into the streets, and now he's in jail for things that he did. So it just leads to bigger issues when you don't have that. When they started in school, it just leads to bigger issues.
You're now out, obviously. How has finding work, finding an apartment, finding a car, like how has that worked out for you?
It's not easy, but I feel like being that type of mindset I have, like failure is just not an option. Like whatever goal I have set for that time period, like that's just what it is. So that's what I try to shoot for, and I just keep going until it happens. But if you don't have that type of mindset, you just come out here thinking something's gonna drop in your lap, which is not. Where you have to be willing to start somewhere too. Like for example, like my first job was at Popeyes. That's who was willing to give me an opportunity. Like the GM, I sat down and talked to him. I told him my story. I told him everything. I told him what was going on. He was like, I'm gonna give you a shot. And I went in there and I did what I was supposed to do. And then when I found something better, like I just keep, like every time I leave a job, I make sure I'm upgrading, I'm elevating. That's what I would do. Like I try to stay consistent, like stay focused to whatever I'm trying to do in that time period.